Hello, welcome to Whiskey with Stu. It is 10 minutes of 5 on Friday, and it's been a long day. And I was thinking it's been a while since I've done a video. It's been a good, I don't know, week at least, which is too long. And lots of subjects come up. You know, a lot of folks who are on this channel, they contact me and they're totally new to Scotch, or they're just now and again, and they want to know about how to taste one of these. There is a great video that I will attach or post in the next couple of days by a gentleman of the name of Richard Patterson. He's sort of the Tommy Lasorda, since Tommy just left us. Tommy Lasorda of Scotch. He's an amazing ambassador, and he's got this really funny YouTube video out there of how to taste a Scotch. And it goes into smelling, getting your nose acclimated to the fact that all this alcohol is going to hit you, so you don't want to put your schnauzer in there too deeply so quickly, swishing around and all that stuff. And that's a fun way of doing it. It's dramatic, but he's trying to get a point across, and I think you'll find it. So I'll post that. So this isn't as much about a taste. This is more about a savoring. So too often, people, myself included, will sit down in the Saturday evening, pour a drink, and it goes too fast. I like them to actually last a while, and you're just kind of drinking and you're not gulping. That would not be for single malts. That's for, what do we say, the cinnamon tasting one, the fire, whatever it's called. Somebody write down the name. The Fireball, sorry. But for this, you know, when you want to sit down and kind of savor it, you know, a friend of mine had said, look, Stu, these, where we are, these bottles take 16 years to be in a cask or a variety of casks before they put in the bottle, right? So why don't you take more than a few seconds? It's kind of hard to put for 16 seconds, just keep it in your mouth. That's a long time. But let it sit in your mouth a little bit. Move it around. Enjoy it. Savor it. So I'm going to one of my go-to bottles, which we've talked about a lot. It's definitely a peaty, smoky Scotch, the Laguvilin 16. And I think, let's see here. Give it a nice little smell. I think my main man Bernie was at Laguvilin today, if you check this website. Yum. So the taste begins with the smell, right? The olfactory glands, taking it in, buttery. The smoke is there, but it's not overwhelming. It's just calling out my name. And that is how I like to savor a great single malt. I hope you guys have a great dram tonight. Let me know what it is. Put it in the post-it in the comments. Have a great weekend. All right, hello. It is 1:15 on December 24th, so it's the day of Christmas Eve. And at 1:15, we're really at 1:15 on any days. Might be a little too early to drink some whiskey, but it's never too early to drink whiskey with Stu. So I thought it would be fun to just sort of, as we kind of are going through the education process frequently, to talk about this special whiskey. The bottle, which I just bought this actually, I was at Total Wine, grabbing a couple items. And I thought this would be a fun item to talk about. It's a very inexpensive bottle of Scotch, and it's a pretty good bottle of Scotch. First time I've ever bought it, not the first time I've had it. And I bought it kind of as a show and tell. And I'm wondering if I could put this on my real estate page, if I can write this off. Wouldn't that be awesome? All right, so what's the deal with this? And we've talked a great deal about single malts, or at least we've hinted about them, the difference between blends and so forth. So let's just do a quick review, right? So your single malt is frankly, just it has to be distilled at a single location. So when you buy a bottle of a single malt Scotch, that could be from multiple years. Okay, they could have distilled one batch and put it into a barrel for 10 years. They could have done another batch and distilled that one and put it in barrels for 15 years, and they basically can put them together. Now, in that situation, that would have to be they would reference that as a 12-year bottle. Okay, which is interesting. Not the 15-year, even if it was 5%, 12-year, and the rest. So when you are getting a single malt, you are effectively getting a blend in sort of the dictionary definition of what a blend is, right? Not a Scotch blend. So now, if you want to get you can get a single cask. So sometimes we'll say single cask, and then it's going to just be the flavor of that one cask. It's not be blended from other casks. All right. So what is a blend then? Well, a blend is when you get these different distillers that will sell their Scotch. Again, frequently it's 3 years and 2 days, because it has to be 3 years and 1 day in these barrels to qualify as Scotch. And they buy it fairly cheap. They put it together. They try to create the same taste. These folks try to create a consistency, but they also put in their grain, a different grain than the barley. And it's a cheaper way, it's less expensive to produce the alcohol from the grains, and they create this mix. And we've talked about blended whiskeys before. So where does Monkey Shoulder fit in? Well, Monkey Shoulder is sort of in between, because Monkey Shoulder is a blended malt. So what does that mean? That means there's no grain in here. This is you can take multiple distillers, their whiskey, and blend it together. No grains. Okay, so it's kind of like no different. Well, it is different because there's different processes in the distillation process, especially, and then they have their magic water, and they may actually malt it differently, but it's pretty similar. So basically, you take these different distilleries and you pour them together and you blend them, and suddenly it's not a single malt. It's no longer a single malt, but this is a blend made up of, in this case, 3 specific single malt, or 3 different distilleries, but again, if you went to the single distillery and you got, like, say, a Glenfiddich 12 or Glenfiddich 18 or whatever it was, or something that didn't have the age, it still would be a blend of single malts. So this is kind of a fun one, and it's got a funny little name, Monkey Shoulder. Now let's have a quick taste. Now again, we're at 120. And we're just gonna have a teeny taste because we got things to do today. But since I have it, you gotta go for it, right? It smells really yummy. Now this is from Speyside, primarily. See, just a little bit, teeny. From Speyside, we talked about that region. I think we might talk about sherry bombs. If not, we're going to do that in the future. But it's an easy location. We had some Glenlivet, not Levitt, but Glenlivet the other day. Same region, okay? And this is made up of malts from 3, like I said, 3 distilleries, which is the Balvenie, which is one of my favorites. I really love the Balvenie. Glenfiddich, which I visited when I was in Scotland in the summer of 2018. And another one, Kinneavy, I believe it was called. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it correctly. And they're really known for sort of creating lots of Scotch and sewing it off to these various blenders, if you will. So again, this is a special one. Let's give it a good taste. It's a solid whiskey. It's good, and yeah, you'll like it. It's a good one to have, right? It's good tasting, fairly inexpensive. I mean, it's like $26, $27, right? That's pretty inexpensive. Now, how does it get its name? So if you're getting the Monkey Shoulder, a lot of people don't know this, but if you're getting the Monkey Shoulder, you're not necessarily being hip like, oh, what a cool name. How'd they come up with that? Well, in the old days, and we're talking about a malted product, so they would take the seeds, take the barley rather, and they would wet it down. And malting is just sort of getting it growing as if you're, it's gonna grow into some plant. And before it really takes off and takes shoots, that's when they stop the process. Okay, so you can't just pile on top of each other and have one big mess. You really want to kind of lay it flat. So you'd have these big warehouses, and they would water them down or wet them and get the process going for growth. And you'd have to turn it a little bit, right? So this was a very manual job, and these guys would have these big sort of rakes, wooden rakes and whatnot. And I'll try to find a picture for another time. And they would go around and they kind of move it around and put it sideways. And it was hard labor, and it really kind of affected their shoulders. And at the end of the day, their arms, some of their arms would hang down really low, and they would call them monkey shoulders, right? So this is an ode to the brave men who helped develop the single malt to what it is today, or Scotch period, and hence the name monkey shoulder. So that's that. Yeah, I have one tiny sip left, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll talk to you later. Now, how do I stop this thing? Oh, Mick is one of Mick's favorites. Oh, so Mick's still on, or he was on, I don't know. So this is Mick's, one of Mick's favorites, he says. And my buddy Paul, who when I went to Scotland, he was introduced to that. I don't know if he's still drinking it, and he's never on Facebook. But Paul, if you ever see this thing, let us know if you're still drinking this or you still buy it. When he came out to California, he had purchased a bottle, so I helped go through it with him. I think that was the last time I had this, was about 2 years ago. So anyway, again, Merry Christmas to everybody. And you can see it's not very sunny today. It's kind of, well, it might look bright on your side. I wouldn't call it rainy, but it's definitely damp. So be safe. Bye-bye. Hello, hello. Okay, welcome to another fun episode. This one's, we're going live of Whiskey with Stu. So we're live right now. Okay, so got a nice little drink here, little dram. This happens to be the Bowmore 18. I discussed this one last week when we were talking about peat and what the heck peat is. We get letters here at Whiskey from Stu, and one of the letters I received not too long ago was from a friend. It said, "Dear Stu, I have several bottles of whiskey as my husband has become very active in whiskey tasting and collections, particularly since he started watching Whiskey with Stu. The one question I have for you, Stu, please call me Stuart. This is just sort of a marketing thing, Whiskey with Stu, but that's fine. One question I have for you, Stu, is what are all these bottles we see that don't say anything about age? You keep talking about 12-year and 15-year or 21. Thank you very much, D. Well, D, that's a great question. And you know what? Why is everything so complicated? And I chose this subject in this letter in particular because it's crazy out there. Are you watching the news? It will drive a man to drink. Excuse me. So good. Okay. Well, let's talk about that. I actually have a few examples right here. These are not open. Now, I know a number of my watchers probably think I have, 30 open bottles. I don't. I've got 20. No, I don't have anything like that. I do have several bottles that are open. I like to jump between them. So my open bottles will last months and months. It's fantastic. And this is actually probably more than I would normally put into a glass. I'll probably put into about half the height, and given the volume, it's a lot less volume. And so I'll have 3 equaling kind of 1 pour or 1 dram because I like to move around on it. But I digress. So I've got unopened bottles here, and these are all example of N.A.S's, N.A.S. So what does that stand for? Stands for non-age statement. Ta-da! Crazy, right? So what's the age statement on this bottle? 18, right? And how long, for those of you listening and keeping track of Whiskey with Stu videos, how long must the distilled moonshine that gets put into a barrel, how long must that be in a barrel for it to be considered whiskey? That's right, 3 years and 1 day. So with all these three here, we have no idea, unless they give us some idea in the back and tell us about how they may put this these different bottles together, these batches together. We really have no idea how old the whiskey is. So what do we know? We know that single malt whiskeys, and these tend to be almost always single malts, and how much of the Scotch that's produced is actually single malt, not blended, right? Like maybe 5%. So most of it, as we talked about, is created in these barrels. It doesn't get very old. It gets a little bit over 3 years, and they send it off to Dewar's, they send it off to Johnny Walker, send it off to all these different names that you know and love and heard about, and they blend them together, not just pouring them in one little bath. They do more than that, but they create their own sort of blended whiskeys, and that's the stuff you're buying when you're buying mixed drinks and you're enjoying when you're kind of out and about with people. So here we are, we're back into the single malt world. And, you know, it's a little stuffy in that world from time to time. People like to say, oh, I've got the 15-year bottle, or I've got a 21-year bottle, which means, of course, it was in a barrel or a combination of barrels for 21 years. And some of that whiskey was actually may have been in longer than that. So if you've got a 15 or a 12-year bottle, there can be a whiskey in there that was in for 14 years, but the lowest common denominator, that any barrel that contributed to it had to be 12 years. So hence it gets the 12-year notation. So here we go again with N.A.S, non-age statement. And these bottles, they don't tell us. So first off, we generally as a group, they're going to be younger whiskeys. And why are they doing these N.A.Ss to begin with? Well, there just isn't enough whiskey out there to meet the demands. People are paying up for the 15-year, the 18-year, the 21-year. And so you got to put that whiskey aside, and you got to save it for, you know, if you want a 20-year whiskey, you're going to have to wait till 2041. So what's ever being produced right now, that 21-year stuff, you're not going to see it for, you know, 3 more presidential elections, so or 4. So it's going to be some time, and people want to enjoy themselves today. So it's a great question, Dee, and as we talk about it, I think about it, it's both an upper division question and a lower division question, right? So there's a lot of N.A.Ss, and this became very popular. These N.A.S whiskeys became very popular over the last 15 years or so. At that stage, you were seeing a lot of really expensive ones come out. So for instance, I think somebody gave this to me as a gift, either my folks, I'm not quite sure. This is a pretty expensive bottle of whiskey here. It's a N.A.S, okay? This, I'm not gonna read through it all right now. There's gonna be some older whiskey in here. And they're trying to show off what they can do, which is not normally what they put together. So let's say that this has some 18-year or some 15-year whiskey in there. I'm sure it does. May even have a little bit of some 21 stuff in there, right? When you go and buy a 15 or 18-year bottle from Macallan's, that bottle, all the bottles are different, but they try to make each vintage, if you will, to borrow a term from wine, they try to make each vintage, each year, each 21 year taste the same as the previous 21 year or the 5 years before that. Okay, so they're trying to maintain a product, a brand that you recognize across all the years, okay? And that can get a little boring, quite frankly, and it's elitist. When have I ever been known to be elitist? So they come up with a $300 bottle of a N.A.S. But in this case, what they're doing is they're showing off what they can do, and they're experimenting, and they're having fun with it. And it's exclusive for this particular one because this was an expensive bottle, and they're doing that. But most of the N.A.Ss, if you will, we talked about the Glenlivet, the Spectra. I did a fun little sort of taste on this one a few weeks ago, and it's brothers and sisters, or brother and sister. They were showing off what they can do with something really creamy, the Glenlivet. And they had 3 of these smaller bottles. I think it was for like $80. But if you were to buy the sort of the underlying bottle of this as a whole, it probably would have been, I'm guessing, like 40 if you bought the real big size. Because it's fun, but you can bet this is younger whiskeys generally. This other one, the Glenlivet Enigma. This one, same company. This is a very, very different, sophisticated N.A.Ss. So yeah, I like some N.A.Ss. There's lots of good N.A.Ss out there. Here's one on my, let's see here, on my iPad. Let's see if we can get this up here. All right, there we are. This is a good one too, very popular. It's the Abandula, and they have a few different types of Abandula, and that's probably one of the best N.A.Ss out there in a more affordable price, anywhere between sort of 45 and 110, depending on which version you get. This is part of sort of the sherry bomb taste, and some of these are fantastic. So if somebody's got a bottle of that, give me a call. I'm coming over. I really enjoy that N.A.S. So that's sort of the great part of N.A.Ss. There is a dark, troubling downside to some of these, which is a lot of them are just crap, and they're well, at least for me, I don't like them. I don't think they're very sophisticated, and you've got a slew of them, and they're trading off names like, oh, Glenlivet, that's got to be good, right? It's $30. I know that, and $30 is $30, right? But I want to know before I'm buying an N.A.S. A good way to find out is you can just look it up real quickly. If you're at the store and you see it, just go to the internet real quick and get a sense of it. Or there are going to be one day, hopefully, again, there will be some whiskey tastings out there. And there's always a few N.A.Ss there and about, and you can compare them side by side. Excuse me. You have to take a moment for self-sponsorship. So, N.A.Ss, great way of innovation, trying some new ways of doing things, putting them together, meeting demand, can be very sophisticated, can be not so sophisticated. No age statement. You don't know how old they are. I suspect they make a fair amount of money on them as well. There's a lot of marketing with the N.A.Ss, right? So again, let's just review real quickly. Look at this, Enigma. Ooh, look at that. It looks pretty cool, doesn't it? You want to be a part of the Enigma, or if you want to know that everybody has to have the Macallan, which is a great brand, overrated, in my opinion, but a great brand nonetheless. Look how sophisticated that looks, huh? You know you're going to be spending money just because of the name. Some of the lower ones ain't so good. This one is pretty darn good. And it's such a pretty bottle. Look at that bad boy. Well, let's see. Does it come out? I'll figure it out later. All right. So I want to thank Dee for sending that letter in. Fantastic. Keep them coming. I do get texts from a lot of people or questions. And I know we're going to have more people on. We're going to have some free speech segments on as well. And that's it. So Have a wonderful week. Take care. This is a very quick and special edition of Whiskey with Stew. Okay, why? Well, for those of you who are watching football this weekend or are playing a little bit of fantasy football, you are quite familiar with the gentleman out of New Orleans by the name of Alvin Kamara. What a beast of a performance, right? Just amazing. Okay, he's done in 100 years. I think went back to 1929 since somebody scored 6 touchdowns in a season. So when you got a fantasy team and you're going for the championship, and you're 2-time consecutive champ, and you're in the championship season again, and you're going up against somebody who you respect, and they've got Alvin Kamara, you're already a little scared. But when in the first game of the weekend, right, the guy scores in the first 2 minutes and just keeps scoring and gets 6 touchdowns, well, that calls for a special scotch. Wee beastie. Hopefully you can see this. I don't have my camera reflecting back to me here. Wee beastie. Okay. Ardbeg. This is a very peaty, highly peated scotch. The whole line is extremely peaty. They have a bunch of different names, lots of fun names. For the most part, I generally don't buy the Ardbegs. They're, as I said, they're known for their peats, and there is a scotch out there, not by these guys, called the Peat Monster, but they are just monsters of peat. So a lot of smoke. We'll talk about peat in another time, but a lot of smoky flavor, a lot of that. When people talk about, gee, I don't like scotch because that stuff tastes like a cigar or a cigarette. It can. I try to stay away from those, but this is a kind of a show off of what they can do. This is known as a monster of a dram, okay? It's not an old bottle. It was in a barrel for 5 years, but it is delicious. It's got a strong spice to it, some peppery flavoring, even some chocolate. Yeah, some chocolate, and then, of course, some tar. There's nothing subtle about this. I have a number of peaty scotches that I really enjoy. I've mentioned them in the past. Kind of my go-to one is the Laguvilin 16 at Costco. Those are more subtle. They're a little bit more interesting. This is interesting from subtle perspective. There's nothing subtle about this, and there's nothing subtle about Alvin Kamara and his 6 touchdowns, which was a record of 56 fantasy points ever. It was actually more than that, but ever. So I thought I'd just share this one and salute the commissioner, who is going to be our champion-elect, is what I'm calling him. And that's really all I got to say about this one. Just a quick snippet. Hope you guys are enjoying your Boxing Day. And one last thing. The reason I bought this bottle at all, because like I said, I don't stay away. I just don't go towards it. It's very different. The Ardbegs is in the Whiskey Advocate magazine, also something I'm going to discuss a little bit further another time. They named this whiskey in the top 5 for 2020, for whatever it's worth. So I went out and got it. It was a fairly inexpensive bottle, and that's really, really yummy stuff. So hope you're having a great day. There's a football game just started up. I'm going to go watch it because I found out that I literally 20 minutes ago that one of my players has been put on the COVID reserve list. Doesn't mean he's got COVID. So I had to make a quick change, and I just put this guy in the lineup 15 minutes ago. So I'm going to go see how he's doing, and maybe we can enjoy a scotch together in better circumstances. Have a great weekend. Hello, and welcome to another live edition of Whiskey with Stew. How you doing? It's Friday. It's raining and wet, and I don't know. Might be time for a scotch, for a dram.
So let's have one. And let's talk a little bit about education, continuing ed credit. You know, whether you're a doctor or real estate professional, not a lawyer. Lawyers know everything. They never need to continue their education. Or a whiskey enthusiast. It's nice to stay up. By the way, this is that Laguvilin 9 that I got real cheap. Whoops, left or right? There we go. Your left is my right, or I don't know. I haven't even had anything to drink yet. It's the 9, the Game of Thrones, House Lannister. Definitely has a. Today the vanilla seems really strong to me. Anyway, I just was thinking a little bit about staying up on some of the information that we gather. I have subscribed to the magazine called the Whisky Advocate. I don't know for how long now, whether it be 5 years or 10 years. It's not particularly expensive. In fact, they are constantly renewing me. I've given out a number of these subscriptions out as gifts, and then they will frequently extend you a year with a subscription, so maybe it's $20 or something. And you get 4 magazines. Used to be every other month, so it used to be 6, but you get one every quarter now. This is the, I believe, the winter edition, and we got the whiskeys of the year. It's interesting. So the publishers of this also publish the Wine Spectator, and I didn't realize that, although it makes a lot of sense. I was reading in here that the editor of this magazine is moving up to Wine Spectator. It's in some ways has altered a little bit as of late. They talk about a lot of non-single malts, which doesn't make me happy. But I'm guessing if had they not done so, they probably would have gone out of business. So they've got their top 20 whiskeys of 2020, and I think only 4 or 5 of them were single malts. And when they think they're all under $150 or $100 and so forth. So yeah, it's a lot of good information. It's not greatly, it's not upper division. It's just kind of nice. It's a big. Comes in the mail, nice color photos, and they teach you about all sorts of stuff, about the process. Here's one. Grabbed a bunch of these. I kind of just save them in a box. Here's one all about rye. So of course this was not about single malts whatsoever. Got somebody calling in on the other my phone. We're going to decline him. And he's watch this later and he'll know it was him. So this is all about rye. So this here was about whiskey with an E. Plus cask strength single malts, which we haven't talked about, but I want to. If you're going to Nashville, where you can check things out. Here was a great episode, though. We talked about peat in this before. And Laguvilin. Here's Laguvilin 12. I'm not as familiar with that one. I've got the 9 right now. So it talks about peat. Let's see here. I don't want to bore you to death. Let's see if there's anything interesting. Lots of advertisements, of course. Interesting, in the back of each edition, they will explain, well, here's one on how to match or pair certain, if you're a cigar smoker, how to pair certain cigars with certain whiskeys. So that's kind of cool. And as I was saying in the back, let's see here, they will talk about, I'll find it in this one. Oh, here they are. They have buying guides, and they do it by country. So here's for Scotland, and they've got new editions that came out, the Glenrothes Vintage 2004, the Balvenie Ton. Tell you how much that's going to cost, what the alcohol by volume, the ABV is. and they give you a little paragraph. So if you're looking for a bottle, you're interested in buying something or exploring a little bit, this can be great because a lot of the liquor stores or a lot of the Total Wine will have these in stock. Anywhere between $56, $50. They give them ratings, numbers. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. A lot of times I get them. I just sort of flip through them like you do with a lot of magazines. I save them off to the side. And as you probably know, I went to Scotland in summer of 2018. I took out all my magazines and I went through Speyside, which is where I was basically going, places to go, better tours, and it was invaluable in terms of putting it together. So, Whiskey Advocate, here was 2 for 1 for the price of $22. So if you're interested in this, you can just go online and get it as well, or give me a call, and I'm happy to send this in for you. One other area of interest, but we must pause at the 6-minute mark. I don't want this to go for 20 minutes. We must pause and imbibe. Very vanilla-y, yes. What does this one say again? Does it have any taste notes? This is a 46 alcohol by volume, so that's good. And I think we've touched on that before. 46% is a lot. Wine's, 13%? And your average beer, help me out, it's 4.5% or 5%, if that. Alcohol by volume. So why do you want it more than 40? Well, again, to be Scotch, there's a lot of rules. You got to have 40% minimum. But that means that they're watering it down pretty much at the minimum number to sell as many bottles as possible. I'm not interested in getting something that's trying to maximize the profit, which they should be doing anyway in other ways. I want to maximize the flavor, the taste, and the experience. And my sweet spot for alcohol by volume, I find, is 43 to 48, 46. It's perfect. The others, you need to put in a little bit more water, but they let you experiment as well, which is kind of fun. All right, before we go, the other area is on Facebook, which is really kind of fun. There's a lot of, Facebook can be a rabbit hole of different interests. There's several whiskey pages, Scott pages. There's one here has 34,000 members. It's a private group. It's called Scotch Attic. I don't know if you can get on there on your own or somebody has to invite you in. Send me a text, put a note here. I'm happy to add you on. I've probably added about a dozen friends. Looks like maybe a dozen and a half or so, because they're. And then it shows up in your newsfeed now and again. There's lots of interesting information there, and I'll search through that. And of course, when I see one of my buddies, this is international. I see one of my friends make a comment because obviously they're friends. I'm alerted, so it's kind of interesting. So. A lot of resources out there. You guys aren't dumb people. Just let you know where they are, where they're at. Easy. I can add you on. That's really about it. Not a whole lot going on. I am finding that, I said to Liz that I seem to have a collection of some scotches that I'm not really too thrilled about. And I don't know if those are a larger percentage of the collection now, because during the pandemic I went through a lot of the bottles, because goddamn, if I were going to go through this pandemic with bad scotch, I had a lot of really good bottles, I opened them up, I wasn't going to be drinking bad scotch during this pandemic. That was just, what would be the point, right? You save these for a reason. It was time to open them up. So I'm left with a lot of mediocre scotches. And I have purchased a few for this, for Whiskey with Stew. Ones that have been kind of fun to go through. I'm glad I got the smaller ones because they're not totally what I'm into. But I'm trying to make this channel a little bit more for folks that are getting into it in a newer fashion as well. So that's it. Have a wonderful weekend. Text me if you want to have a dram. Read up about what a dram was, if it's a measurement or what. We'll save that for another time. Take care. And we're going to hit end right now.
Well, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Whiskey with Stew. It's been a couple weeks, and I Well, actually, I was thinking I was going to open this bottle and discuss it and enjoy it and share it with you. Um, but I thought I would explain this type of bottle first, and maybe we'll hit this one up on the next go around. So, what is an independent bottler? This is really upper division stuff, guys. So if you are just trying to enjoy single malts and get into them, and you're still exploring, this may not be the right time for this. What is this? So, okay, so we've talked about what single malts are, right? And back in the old days, there was, and I don't have an example of the one I was going to tell you about, but you had a lot of guys that were sort of, they were brokers, they were whiskey brokers. They'd buy the whiskey, and they would take them around to people that wanted to blend them up or do whatever you want with them. Now it's kind of like corn futures. They buy them ahead of time, they enter into these long contracts and whatnot. Sometimes these distillers need space, or they've got whiskey that the market seems right, that they want to sell it off, but they don't want to flood the market with their own bottles. So they'll sell it off to somebody else that maybe they've stored for a while. But typically what happens a lot of times is these distillers, all the big names you know and heard of or enjoy, they distill this moonshine. It's not whiskey yet. It's got to be in these barrels for at least 3 years and 1 day. But they distill this moonshine, this clear liquid, and they sell it. They sell it to a number of independent bottlers. So there's a ton of them out there. Kind of the big ones are Adelphi, Signatory, Gordon and MacPhail was one of the older ones, and I actually visited their shop, or they actually have a shop in Elgin, in Speyside, in the Highlands of Scotland, and did a bunch of tastings. That was totally awesome. So what do? So they'll take a whiskey from, let's just take the famous one, the Macallan, right? Macallan, they have their moonshine, they put it in a barrel, and they'll put it in the barrel, and they'll put it in a certain type of barrel, of course, to come up with a certain flavor 12 years out, 15 years out, 18 years out, whatever that is. And again, the vintage, if you will, of a 15-year Macallan in 2020 versus a 15-year Macallan bottled in 2005 should taste about the same. That's their job, to keep a consistency. So if you drink a fair amount of Scotch whiskies with your friends, I got a lot of friends that enjoy it. We get together every couple of weeks, maybe we have a dram. If you drink these and you're going to your friends' houses, everybody has a lot of the same bottles, or there's this collection of, you're constantly trying the same stuff. And for years, I was buying that portfolio, if you will, and switching around and trying something new. And they're great. There's a lot of great whiskeys out there. But I thought, I started changing up and going into a little more geekdom, if you will. And you take an independent bottler that bought that same moonshine from the Macallan, and they took it and they put it in a different type of barrel. And maybe it was bigger, maybe it was, maybe instead of a Hogsmeade barrel, they used a smaller barrel. Instead of American oak, maybe they used some other type of oak, or they use a sherry cask. They switch it up. So they're tinkering with the Macallan. So you can have a Macallan 12-year from Macallan, and you know what that's going to taste like. Or you can get a independent bottler. Let's see here. Well, let's take the one that you see at Costco all the time, and I've mentioned once or twice, like an Alexander Murray, who bought the moonshine, and they put it into their own barrels. Okay, and on this one, let's see here. It's kind of hard to see. Let's see if we can get a little picture. In the gold, it says Bunnahabhain. Okay, and this one is 28 years that they had it in their barrels. All right, so it's a completely different taste. So if I got the Bunnahabhain, let's see here. Say that quickly, right? Bunnahabhain 28-year bottle is going to be very different from this one. So it's kind of fun to mix it up. So again, I go to a friend's house or we get together. They've got bottles that I enjoy tasting, but nobody has these. So when I come home, a lot of times I like to taste one of these. So let's see here. Another characteristic of these is they tend to give you a lot more information about where this moonshine came from. And not just like the name of the distillery, but let's see here. Sorry, somebody just texted me. So yeah, they give you a lot more information, and they tend to be a lot higher in alcohol content. So remember, to be Scotch whiskey or single malt, or Scotch, any kind of whiskey, it's got to be a minimum of 40% alcohol by volume. This one, and I'm going to put on my glasses because we've learned I can't see anything anymore. This one is 53.2%. So I cannot wait to taste this one. It's got a story. I bought it just before our house fire a little over 3 years ago. It was up against the wall, took a lot of heat. I've cleaned up the bottle. It was very not smoky taste. It was smoky on the outside. I don't know if you can see the label. It's still pretty dark. It's time to open this bad boy. It's time to enjoy it. I'm back in my house, and I think I'll do this on the next go around and share that one with you. Another really big name is in the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. These guys are a little bit different because they actually play a role in the rules of what a single malt is and what's appropriate and what's okay. And they're sort of the gold standard, independent, if you will. To buy one of these bottles, you have to be a member of this society. It costs about $80 to join, and the whiskey ain't cheap, but it is fun. Fun for several reasons. So first of all, what they do is they tell you, let's see if you can see that here, it says it is 93.107. So the 93 means it is from a particular distillery that they have labeled 93. Now they used to, there we are, and 107 I think is the 107th batch that they've done from this distillery. So they purposely do not tell you who the distiller is because they don't want you focusing on the name. They want you focusing on what they can do with some of these other whiskeys. And they tell you a lot of information. So this bottle, for instance, was distilled on December 21st, 2010. It is a 7-year aged, first fill barrel of ex-bourbon, and it's from the Campbelltown region, or Campbellton, which is the kind of the lower areas of Scotland, if you will. I don't even really know if there's really just 2 or 3. There aren't too many distilleries in that area. Now, of course, the internet being what it is, you can't fool us with what that 93 is. Just type in Scotch Malt Whisky Society codes into Google, and you get a list. 93 is the Glen Scotia Distillery. So they got that. They also have some really fun names. So this one is Flexing the Muscles. And then they put some fun descriptions. Rock pools and dried kelp for tasting notes. Introduced mussels in white wine sauce whilst the palate balance cloves and dried herbs and honey on charcoal. Interesting, right? It's kind of fun. Here's one. Well, here's one. It is number 100.20, so it's the 20th. There we are. It's the 20th batch that they've done from this distillery, which is this is number 100, which is the Strathmill. I checked that out. It's an 11-year age from the Speyside region. Of course, we know it's Strathmill, so of course that's Speyside. And this is bottle number 1 of 305 bottles that they made. So I guess I'm number 1. Look at that. And I'm down to here. So I wound up opening a lot of these and then sort of kind of saving them because it's hard to kill a bottle. It's just so sad, right? Now, lastly, the one I'm going to try tonight is the Glendronach. Now, here's a great example. So here is Glendronach, a 15-year. Oop, there we are. And this is a great bottle. I love this bottle. It's a fun bottle. I forgot what it costs. It's probably about an $80 bottle, and it's a great example of what these guys can do. Really underrated. People like to go for the 18 or the 12 on this. This 15 is one of my favorites that they make. But here we go. They are known as the Cask 96, and this is their 27th go at it. And again, this is the first of 166 bottles. So I bought a bunch of different new ones at the same time. They shipped them over from Scotland. The $80 that I paid for the membership for the year, which I didn't renew this year because I still got so many bottles I just want to get through first before I start buying more. But you buy a bunch of them, and the cost of shipping, the first bottle is $35, and the next bottle is $5. And then before you know it, you don't have to pay any VAT tax, and it's becomes affordable. But you got to buy a bunch of them to make that happen. So this one says it's called the Furtive Scone Pesterer. What the heck is going on there? An older style example of this distillery: minerals, tobacco, antique floral notes, and myriad of oils, wood spices, all combined to great effect. So, as we like to always make sure we end or begin or in the middle of these whiskey with stew times, have a little pour. And this one is it's interesting. It's not a particularly dark one, right? It's still, look at that. It almost looks like a Chablis. Here we go. And this is going to be strong. It's going to be, oh yeah, 58.5% alcohol. So this is strong stuff indeed. And again, okay, so right, the alcohol with that kind of strength is really overwhelming. So you just want to, you don't want to put your schnoz in to begin with. Just let it kind of get in there and get acclimated. It's beginning to come in. There's always, the alcohol is so strong it can overwhelm the tasting. Yum, yum. So I'm going to just put a teeny dab. So when I say, how do I like to taste the whiskeys? Now I've got a pipette somewhere around here. Here it is. I like to just, I don't use the pipette to put in my mouth, but I'll put in like that much, not a lot, right? And I'm just going to sort of swish it around. It's not much of swishing. Almost let it interconnect with my saliva. It's not really something you're going to be drinking per se. Just get your taste buds going. Do a little bit more. Whew. Strong, good. Let's give a little water. Now, normally I'm just going to put in a few drops, but with this amount of alcohol, we're going to get a little more. Even all that. Moving around, sort of clouds up a little bit. Let's give it a try here. So there's a couple things happening when I taste this, and it's just delicious, frankly. The alcohol is strong, so you feel that, but after a good 5 or 6 seconds, the spice just starts exploding in my mouth. A lot of whiskeys are not spicy. A lot of scotches aren't spicy. And I like a nice spicy scotch. Not all the time, but tonight just hits the spot. And I would certainly suggest, if you want to get a couple bottles now and again, look them up on the internet. But again, this is upper division stuff. If you're just starting to build a portfolio, this isn't the time to get 1 or 2 of these. But there's a few out there that I've really enjoyed, and I'm going a little bit late on time, so I don't want to go too long. When I try this one with you guys next, I should make a note to remember to tell you a couple other tricks in looking for these bottles. So with that, Have a great Dram sometime this weekend as we're approaching tomorrow being Friday. And I guess we'll see you the next time. Take care.